Okay, hi everyone. I am recording. We are experiencing some technical difficulty and our sound has been going in and out. This is beyond my control. I will do what I can to make sure that it all works fine. Everybody can see and hear me now, right? Okay, so what I want to do tonight is play with the Tim Holtz Distress Paints. I have quite a few of, well, I have all of them. Thanks to Flamingo Scraps, I have a whole slew of them here. The paints come in the properties of distress, and there are 24 or 26 colors here. Not all of the distress colors are available yet. The thing that you need to know about these paints is they're a little different than regular acrylic paints. They do have the properties of distress in them so that you can layer one on top of the other. They do react with water, but the cool thing about these paints is that once they are dry, they dry permanent and will not react with water again. They have a chalk consistency to them. They kind of look like chalks. But for those of you who are interested in mixed media, I know Lamore is an amazing mixed media artist. She'll tell you that these paints, the cool thing about them is you don't have to go over them with matte medium to seal them, because once they are dry, they're permanent. And that saves a lot of time, a lot of layering and things like that. So that's really cool. So tonight we're going to play with them, and I've chosen to play with them. I'm going to use the blues, the greens, maybe some of the pinks and reds. For now, I'm just going to kind of move these out of the way. Pull out some of those. Another product, and also I think Flamingo Scrap still has a couple of these. You have to buy them in a set, but I know that Flamingo Scraps does have these available in the store still. So check the pricing on that. Suzanne can drop in the price if you don't have them yet. We're also going to play tonight with the Distress pens that I got last year. I love these. I don't see a lot of people using them, but I do know that I absolutely love them. I use them on just about everything. We're also going to play with some of the Prima balsa wood pieces, and I've also gotten all the Prima dolls, and we're going to play with one tonight. This is the one that I chose to play with tonight. These pens are awesome, but they do frustrate people because they are different than regular watercolor pens because they have the properties of distress. But we're going to play with those tonight, so you guys know how to play with them. Then also a new product to Flamingo Scraps, the Plus line. She has purchased these. This is a self-inking stamp. So when you push it, it's already inked, and then it's like a roller. So we're going to play with that tonight, and that's available in the store. And then I'm going to build my tag out on these tags from Ranger. So let's get started because we're running a little late and I'm getting a little flustered here. So this project is not planned, so we're going to just see where it goes, see where it takes me. I get this cutting mat out of the way. Now on my station I also have these wet wipes because we're dealing with paint. I want to make sure I get everything cleaned up. And one of the things that I do know I want to do is I want to use this roller first because I want to use it on a piece of vellum because I want it to look like a film strip. And I know this vellum is going to take a while to really dry. So I want to make sure, grab my paper towels real quick. I want to make sure that it has time to dry without it smearing too much. So the cool thing about this, I need to get on an even surface here. The cool thing about the stamp is that when you push the button, the ink roller is activated. So it stays down without you having to keep the button pushed. And I have no idea how much these things cost. Suzanne will have to drop the price in. But you're just going to take put your finger, there's these little divots here in the side. You're just going to take your fingers and put them on there and hold it like this, and then apply even pressure in a line. And look at how cool that is. Isn't that cool? And then I'm going to try and keep my surface clean. I'm just going to take my heat tool and I'm going to set it, because this is vellum and I want to make sure that it sets really good. Now the ink that is inside of this roller is water based, so it will smear on a slick surface. So you want to make sure it's good and dry before you mess with it. Look at how cool that is. I mean, it's just, and if you went over it again with some of your stays on inks, with the browns, it would look like a real film strip, like a negative. This is the Ranger heat tool here. But yeah, it's very quiet. Okay, so I'm going to set that to the side and let it finish drying on its own. I just didn't want that wet to bleed on the vellum. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my tag and use it. Now the Ranger tags are different than regular manila cardstock. These have like a coating on them so that the mediums will stick to the coating. So I'm going to try and, let's see here, I'm going to play with maybe taking the Salty Ocean. I'm going to try a couple of different techniques here. I'm going to just put a little bit here on my mat. And you don't need a whole lot because these things are very fluid and they are going to stay very wet. And before you use these, you do want to make sure that you shake them up. There's a little ball inside. Hold on a minute. I don't know what that is. You want to make sure that you shake these up before you use them, because they are a fluid paint, and you know, just like all acrylic paints, you want to make sure that you are actually shaking them up first. There's a little mixing ball inside of them. Can all of you still hear me and see me fine? And now I'm just going to take some regular water and I'm going to squirt these down, and then I'm going to dip my tag in it. And look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. Now, as long as these paints are wet, they will continue to mix. Look at that. It looks like a nice little Easter egg. Love it. I'll clean this up a little bit. Look at how cool that is. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this up really good. And you're going to notice that as it dries, right now it has like the properties of distress. So it's all wet and it's reacted to the water. It's fusing together and it's actually blending. And I could take a blending tool while I'm drying this, and I could continue to do like a swirly motion here to even these out even more. Look at that. So these paints blend super awesome. I mean, like, they are so, I love the way they blend. Look at how soft pastel that turned. I don't know what's going on with YouTube tonight, or Ustream tonight, but it is recording, so hopefully everything will record fine. Now, notice that this tag is so green on here. If I want to add a little more blue, now that this is dry, all I have to do is come in here and add that blue right over the top, and it's not going to mix with what's underneath, because what's underneath is still very wet, or I mean still dry. So once it's dry, it has no tooth to it. So you can just keep adding layer after layer after layer to this. And then if you want to come in and add a little bit of color, like texture, I don't know what's going on with the Ustream tonight, but for some reason it's not wanting to behave. But if you want to come in and blend a couple more of these colors together, even though you have the base coat down, it is not going to mix those colors up any further. It's going to continue to just build one right on top of the other. So you can come in and really add some shading to this if you want to. You can darken it up, really get into it and play. Come up with some different color palettes by mixing the colors. The cool thing too about this is you can come back after this is dry and just keep, like if this is too dark, you want to lighten it up, all you have to do is dry it and add the color back on top of it. So you can really get some great shading. Yes, I am recording. I know Ustream is misbehaving tonight. I know that the sound is probably not great. But by adding color on top of color, we're starting to get depth of field with our colors. And all I'm using is a little cosmetic sponge. Now, these paints are designed to stay wet for a long time. So this is actually still wet. I haven't dried it. So if I want to come back in and add a little bit of water, notice that the top part, the water is going to react to and stay. It's going to actually change the way the distress is reacting here. You can actually see water spots, and I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see it after it's dry. But down at the bottom, it's just water. There's no puddling, there's no separation of the inks or the colors or the pigments in here. It's just color. So it's really cool how these paints are reacting to this. I really love it. I love that I can just keep adding layers to this without having to come back in and I'm going to show you guys the water spots in just a second. Hold on. Let me get it dry. But I can just keep adding one layer after another of these paints, building one on top of the other, and get different looks and be able to blend without having to worry about matte medium and drying time on matte medium. Now, just to kind of speed this up a little bit, I'm going to do this. Now look, I'm going to show you guys. Look, right here you can see where there was water spots. You see the water spots in the blue paint here? But down here at the bottom where the water had hit, it's solid. It looks just like it did before I added water, because this down here was dry, but this wasn't. So you can see where the white cardstock is picking up, and you can see the green from underneath. So that's one of the really cool things about these paints. I really love them. Okay, so now I'm going to go in, and I think I want to add some clouds to this because I have a nice little green horizon and a blue top up here at the top. So I'm just going to take my white. Again, make sure you're shaking them up really good. And I'm just going to add some white clouds by just pouncing. Now the daubers, you don't have to worry about if you use one color over the top of another color. You don't have to worry about them contaminating anything, because the stopper that's at the top is typical of all of his distress products. It is a one-way pass, so it's not going to come back through to the bottle and contaminate the paint. And I saw on one of his videos, one of Tim's videos, where if your top becomes contaminated, all you have to do is run it onto a piece of paper to clear it off. Okay, so now I want these to dry, and I want them to stay kind of opaque in there. These do have a chalky finish, so if you want it to be gloss at the end, you would have to come back over the top with maybe something glossy, like a varnish or a glaze. You could also mix these with a glaze if you wanted them to be, if you wanted these to be, you know, shiny. So now that I have that, I'm going to let that dry on its own. You do not have to heat set these paints for them to become permanent either. As soon as they are dry completely, even if it's just overnight, they are completely dry. So now I'm going to show you guys, I've showed you in a YouTube video how to do this, but I want to show you again. I'm going to make a, ooh, the top wasn't on there. I've got it squirting out everywhere. Put that off there. Make sure your lids are on there before you start squeezing them. I'm going to mix a couple of these colors together. So I'm using, on this one, this is the pink raspberry, or picked raspberries, and the spun sugar. And I'm going to take my finger, I'm going to pick up some of the pink, the bright pink, and then some of the light pink. So I've got two colors on my finger. And with a figure, or I'm going to draw the letter E on my paper. So I've got two colors, and I'm going to draw the letter E on my paper. And what this is going to do is make a little rose petal. So I'm just finger painting. I might need some more of this lighter color. I have a giant mess going on here. Might need a little more of this. And you're just going to build up shading on these. How cool is this? And just keep adding. These are my little poppies. And I might need to come back with some more lighter pink. And you're just going to build layers. See how that's just going to add, that's what's going to add your petals. When we're done, you're going to look at it and go, wow, that was the letter E. That's all that is a lowercase letter E. And the lighter color mixed with the darker color is giving you the shading that creates the poppy look. Put one more down here. Okay, so now I want to let that dry. I'm going to clean my mess up here. And I've got a nice mess going on here. This one exploded. Only on live TV, right? Ugh. I'm just going to clean it up. Hold on. Put this down here so I don't get it all over everything. Now let's dry this so we can go back over and add another little layer on top. We promised a big mess. I'm telling you right now, this only happens when you're live. So make sure before you squeeze those tops that all those tops are secured down. I don't know why that one was off because I just popped the top off of it. It must have been loose in shipping. But boy, do I have it everywhere. Look at how my clouds look all fluffy. They're picking up the blue from underneath. I really love that. Okay, Suzanne, you are modded now. Yeah, just you guys check them. Maybe they loosened up in shipping or something, but just check. Just check. They're almost dry. These paints take a while to dry, which has an upside and a downside. The upside is that it gives you more time to play and mix and just make some fun things. The downside is it takes a long time to dry. So if you want to move fast, you may have to spend some more time with your drying side. But when you really start doing mixed media, it's cool because the longer it stays wet, the more possibilities of mixing and, you know, coming up with different textures and looks. So tonight was not a planned project. This is just creative play at hand. Why didn't it mod you? Is it not liking me? I think I have a poltergeist tonight. Try now. See if you're modded now. Yay! Okay, so now that these are dry, I'm going to come back over the top one more time and just give a little more depth to my poppies. Again, it's just the figure 8. And the cool thing about these, and you're really going to start seeing it come through, but the cool thing about these is the more you add one layer on top of the other, the more they really become, you know, realistic looking. And when I add the foliage, that's when it's going to come to life. That's when you're going to look at it and go, wow. Put a little white here. And I'm going to just come back with the white, a little on my finger, and just add a few spots here and there. Notice I didn't dry between, because on this white, I really want it to mix with that lighter pink and become the flower petals. Give it some highlights so it looks like it's you know, got a little depth. Okay, enough of that big giant mess. I need to make sure I clean that mess up. Clean these up. That's just water. I'm going to put my tag to the side for now, let it dry, and we're going to work on my scenery a little bit. I have a girl that I want to color, and I prefer to not do it with inky hands, but now I took some of the Ranger stamping paper, and I did this before the class started because I didn't think you guys wanted to see me fussy cutting and doing all of that kind of stuff. So since my surface is wet, I'm going to put this all down here out of the way. I'm going to just use this guy for coloring my girl. Where'd she go? I lost her. Where did she go? There she is. Okay, so this is the Prima doll. I'm using an archival ink, the jet black archival ink. This is what she looks like, and I just stamped her onto some of the Ranger stamping paper. You can use watercolor paper, you could use your Copic paper, but I prefer the Ranger stamping paper when I'm using the distress inks. I don't know why, I don't know how to tell you why, I just prefer the look, and I tested quite a bit of them. So I'm going to use a water brush, and these are brushes that have just a little fine tip on it, and then there's water inside of here. And when I use my water brushes, I always want to make sure I have handy a paper towel. So I'm going to get that handy. And for my girl, I'm only going to paint her hair and her face, her arms and her legs, because I'm going to stamp her body and her headband onto something else. So is everybody following me still? Am I still alive and kicking in here? Okay, so my color choices that I'm going to pick out today, for her hair, I think I want her to be blonde, so I'm going to use the Wild Honey. For her skin tones, I'm going to use Tattered Rose, Spun Sugar, and Dried Marigold. So we're going to start with, I like to start with her face, and before I begin coloring her, I want to add some, I'm going to add some water to the top of this image and do what I call priming the paper, because that gives it just a nice wet surface for my ink to adhere to. Since these are watercolor pens, they do better that way. And I'm just going to blot up any of the excess. It's still very damp. It's just not completely saturated. Now on her hair, I'm going to start where the shadows would be, because this is distress ink. The more you lay on top, the darker it becomes. So we're only going to work in her shadows, which would be close to the bottom of her hairline down here. And I'm going to, because her head would actually cause the bottom parts of her hair to be darker. And don't worry if it bleeds into her face. You know, it'll come up with when we add the other colors. I'm going to start here at her part. And then I'm going to come around and just add a little bit into these areas that are highlighted with the black outlines. Now, because I put water down first, these inks are starting to blend on their own. Now I'm going to take, see how when I go back over that area it gets a little bit darker? Now I'm going to take my water brush and I'm going to start evening those color tones out. And I don't want to add a lot of water, I just want to add enough to blend it, because the more water you add, it's going to start warping. The water does dilute the color a little bit, so you may have to apply a couple of different coats of it. Then I like to take mine and just kind of blot up some of that excess water. And what that does is it keeps my paper from really warping too bad. And I'm going to pick up some more of this color and run it up through here. And maybe through her bangs. It's very subtle right now, but we're going to add another layer of color in just a minute. You don't want to overwork this paper because it does have a clay coating on it. And if you overwork it, what happens is you end up bruised paper, and by that I mean it won't absorb any more color and it turns this ashy gray color. Now I'm going to come back with my pen and I'm going to go over those same spots again, and this is just going to add a little more depth to her hairline. For those of you who do Copic coloring, you know what I'm doing. We're just adding shading. And I'm going to put a little bit of color here under her headband, because her hair, you know, her headband would be offering some sort of shadowing there. And then with most two-dimensional drawings like this, you really, they're kind of flat. You want to add a little bit of color towards the tips of her hair. Now we're going to take our water brush, we're going to work all that color back in. Don't worry if it bleeds into her headband, because we're going to cover that up with paper later. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time fussing with it. But I'm just pushing that color back up into that whiter areas. And then I'm going to let that sit, and in a little bit I'm going to come back and color the whole image again with the white, with the color. But you can see, let me see if I can pull it up where you can see. You're starting to really get some definition in her hair. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. I don't know what's going on. Now the reason I didn't just go ahead and color over this completely with color the first pass was because, like I said, this is distress. And with distress, the more layers you do, the darker it becomes. So those lighter areas are going to remain a little bit lighter than they would have been had I colored the whole image to start with. So she's really going to have some nice texture in her hair. And all I'm doing is going back over it with the water brush. And then I'm going to come back and lift that up, and now this is what she looks like. This is the Ranger stamping paper. I don't use watercolor paper. I don't like it. I don't know why, I just don't. Okay, so now we're going to come back with, we need to color her face, and I'm going to start with the dried marigold. And I'm going to put that just around the edges of her face, coming in like there were cheekbones. and up around her hairline, since the shadows from her hair would be on her face. And this is just your shadow color. You don't want to use a lot of this. And then under her neck and under her chin, kind of coming down like this. Now we're going to blend this out and just pull that color towards the center. She's going to look a bit scary for a minute, but just bear with me. Now, lift that up. I'm going to come back with the tattered rose, and I'm going to color the whole image in with the tattered rose, or the whole face. Tattered rose has a little bit of a brown tone to it, so it makes her skin tone, but it's still pink, so it makes her skin tone look a little warm. Then to blend it all in, I'm just going to come back with the water brush and color her all back in. Now I'm going to just lift that up just a bit, and there's her face. I'm sorry you guys are having a hard time. I don't know how to fix it. I hope the recording is doing good. Okay, so then I'm going to come back in here and do the same thing with her arms. Like I said, don't worry about her dress. We're not going to be coloring her dress. Where's my dried marigold? Okay, under her arm, where her shirt is probably going to be the darkest shadow. So I'm going to add that back in with the dried marigold. And by blotting this up, what I'm doing is keeping the paper from warping. And it also lightens down your tones a little bit. Again, dried marigold right here under her dress. And her knee, where the bottom of her knee is. And on this side. That's her kneecap. And then maybe like around where the tip of her toe is. Right here where her shoes come together. And maybe around where her ankles would be. Then I'm going to come back in with the, let's blend that out. Then I'm going to come back with the tattered rose, and I'm going to continue to blend. Just go right over those edges, add that extra bit of color. I'm only going to stay towards her shin because the outer part of her leg has probably got a little bit of light hitting it. And the top of her foot. Then I'm going to come back with the pen, the water pen, and blend it out. These are all subtle things. Whenever I do it, you don't really notice it until the end. When all of these colors dry, that's when you're really going to start noticing all of this extra time that you spent blending. And it seems like a lot of work at first, but it's so worth it to me. Because this is what gives your girls some depth. And again, I'm just covering the entire thing with the tattered rose now. Because it's distressed, the areas I colored first are going to stay darker, and that's what's going to give you the definition in her legs. Come back over it with the water to blend it. And lift. I need a little more color here on her arm. Okay, so there's our girl. Very simple. Let's see if we can get it to, I don't know if you guys can see it, but you'll see it whenever I post the pictures. You'll see she has kneecaps and everything. Thank you, Rachel. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I really don't know what to do about it, but anyway, so she's all colored, so we're going to put her to the side now, and we're going to do her dress. So I have this piece that is a piece of scrap. For something like this, go through your scraps and see what you have. Since we used the pink poppies, I think it would be fun to come back and add some of this hot pink. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to take my stamp and just try and just stamp her body, because I don't really need everything, and I need her head. Actually, I need her head because I need the headband. So I'm just going to do this part of her body. And this is archival ink. Since you're working with water, you want to make sure you're using archival ink or stays on. And I'm just going to stamp. I don't want to stamp it on that. Let me put this here. I'm going to make sure I stamp her dress and her head. Then I'm going to cut out. I'm going to kind of cut her headband off. This feels like playing dress up doll. You know, like, did you guys ever play with paper dolls? I used to have so much fun playing with them when I was a kid. Did you guys play with paper dolls? Okay, so there's her headband, and now her dress. Cut her arms off because you don't want pink polka dotted arms. Can you guys still hear me? You know, this is one thing I always enjoyed doing, and it's very hard. You can't find paper dolls anymore, but they're so fun. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could even make the pockets on her dress a different color. You could go through all of that, but I'm not going to go through all of that tonight. We're already running a little bit behind. So where'd my girl go? So now I'm just going to take and add her dress to her body. Just like that. And I'm just going to use some, I think I'm going to use my Xyron for this. Because I really want it to stick forever. I don't want it to come up, so. I'm just going to put her dress right on here. Now, my personal opinion is I took all this time to do the shading on her body. So her dress kind of looks a little flat to me. So I'm going to come back with the, let me try it on a piece of scrap first and make sure it's the right color. But, yeah. I'm going to come back with the worn lipstick, since this is pink. You know, you'd have to decide which color is best for you. And I'm just going to go around these creases a little bit with this pen. And this is going to add a little bit of depth and texture to her body. Or her dress. So it kind of gives her a little shape. And I'm only going where the shadows would be, like maybe right here between her arms, and then maybe coming around the edge of her dress. this way. Be careful, don't get it on her arm. You could probably have done this before you actually put her down on her, you know, put the dress down. And then maybe under that little ruffle and maybe around her pockets. Then just like I did before, I'm going to come back in with my watercolor pen and I'm going to blend some of this out. Now she has a little bit of depth to her. And don't overwork it, because remember, this is paper, printed paper. So if you add too much water to it, it's not watercolor paper. What's going to happen is it's going to start lifting the dye that's from the ink off of the paper, and that's not the look you're after. But see, now she has a little bit of depth to her. Okay, so now let's do our headband, and I just have one of these little glue pens. I think I'm just going to use it because it's very small, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this glue right here. This is the quickie glue pen. And just like we did with the dress, you got to add the shadowing back into our headband. So I'm just going to put just a little bit coming up this way and a little bit coming up this way. And what that's going to do is just give a little bit of roundness to that and add some shading back to your headband. So there's our little girl now. Do I still have an audience? My chat went blank. Okay, so let's go back to this, and it looks like our poppies are almost dry. Let's give them a little bit more love. And now I'm going to come back with my the peeled paint, and I'm going to add back in the bottoms to my poppies. And I'm just kind of, you know, freeform it. The thing about abstract is that it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's what the appeal is so much to the mixed media style, is that it doesn't have to be perfect, and that it sometimes looks better if it's not perfect. I think if Leemore is still with me, she probably would agree. And just to give a little depth to that, let's come back in with a little darker. This time I'm using the sharp end of the pen and just coming down one side. So that first color was peeled paint. This one is pine needle. And you don't have to have the distress paints to do this, or the distress pens or paints, either one. You could do all of these techniques with other paints. You know, just for this class, I wanted to play with these products. I've spent so much money on them. It's nice to get out and play with them and use them. I'm actually going to tell you right now, I've done this with acrylic paint, and I'm going to tell you these paints are so smooth. that I don't know that I'll use acrylic paint for anything else. Now I'm just going to come back. These are watercolors, remember. And the cool thing is the reason I'm doing this technique on here is to show you guys that it's not picking up from the paint below. That is set. It's completely set. The only thing that you're seeing mixed is the watercolor elements from the distress pens. You're not seeing, it's not picking up the green from underneath at all. That is set and it is no longer mixable. Okay, so now we have a little bit of depth. We have a platform for our girl to sit on. I'm going to come back, and I have a film strip here that I did earlier so I could make sure that it was actually dry. And I'm going to glue it down, but when I glue it down, I'm going to glue it down across where the black of the pen is. Where's my glue sticks? Or the black where the ink is from the well, there they are. I'm going to go, since I have the Maya Road, stamps, I'm going to go with a kind of a movie film kind of theme for this. And I want it to stick up some like it's a roll-in film. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to put it, like I said, where the black is so that you don't see it, because this is vellum. And while I'm going to continue to add to it and do some things with it, I really don't want to be able to see it from underneath. And I want it turned and all that good stuff. And it's okay if it's bent, I don't care. So I'm going to kind of put it down so it looks like this. Then I'm going to come back and add on top of that my little girl, like she's standing in her field of poppies getting her picture taken. And then I'm going to take my, these are some more stamps that just came into Flamingo Scraps. These are from Maya Road. And I have, this one is called You've Been Framed. And I'm going to use these Insta frames. Night, Lamore. Thank you for coming. Hi, Alicia. I didn't see you sneak in. Scrapbook Easta. Welcome. I don't know what's going on with the thing, but it still says I'm recording, so I think we're doing okay as far as that goes. Ustream's just not behaving tonight. I'm going to use Stays On because, like I said, I got a lot of water going on in here. These are jelly stamps too, so if this is the first time you're taking them out of the package, you may want to use permanent ink on them first, and then use a then you can use your dye-based inks. But I'm just going to stamp this on a piece of scrap paper. Just like that. Love it. Maybe do one more. I like the chevron one. One of these is polka dots, one is chevron, and the other is a houndstooth. So they're really fun. And these Maya Road stamps are very sticky. And I am stamping challenged, and tonight I'm all flustered, so it's probably worse. So we're going to take and cut these out now, and I'm just going to use my blade here. Cut them out. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the center out of here too. It would be fun if you wanted to paint or stamp a scene towards the center. Just do a mask first. And a mask would be cut, you know, cut this out and then cut the center out. Or, you know, stamp it one time, cut the center out, and then use that as a mask over the next one that you stamp. And then that way you could make a scene. You could totally make some scenes up with these. I'm going to cut my finger off if I'm not careful. I can't talk and cut at the same time. I'm challenged that way. Okay, throw those away. And cut this one. This is a great way to use up the scraps. And you know, just a fun little way to do. I may take this stamp when I'm done, this tag when I'm done, and put it in my art journal. Or you could even, these tags are so ginormous, you could make mini albums out of them. Has everybody left me? Oh, my chat came back. I see you got unmodded again. Flamingo, I just modded you again. I don't know what's going on. See if you're modded. It would make a really cute card. Super cute card. Especially like if there was a happy birthday sentiment in the center of this. How cute would that be? But I'm going to use these frames to frame out my little poppies that I drew. I think that would be fun. And then I need one more. What do you guys think? I think my little girl goes up here. I like her up a little higher. I'm going to go ahead and glue her down. But, you know, I don't think I want to glue her all the way because I kind of like that she sticks up a little bit. You can kind of see a shadow. I don't want to put her on a pop dot, but I do like that she's free forming. So I'm not going to pop her up too much. And I think what I want to do with these is I'm going to just put a little spot of glue right here and kind of layer them. Maybe I'll pull her feet out over the top like that. Maybe I'll put her little feet down. Like that. But see how my frames are kind of covering up my poppies? They're kind of framing out my poppies a little bit. Love it. Maybe put that one under, but over this one. Like that. Love it. We're almost done, guys. Thank you for being so patient and sticking with me tonight. One more stamp. And I need another one of these. Probably didn't eat that up. You guys, when you do this, spend a little more time and make sure your stamps are good and inky. I'm trying to hurry because I know we got a late start and we've had a lot of technical difficulties, so I'm cutting corners here a little bit, but you guys know the gist of what we're doing here. I really love these stamps. They're so fun. And I really think that these are going to be great if you wanted to print. I know everybody uses Instagram now. If you wanted to print out some of your Instagram pictures on your home computer and then put them inside of these little Polaroids, how cute would that be? I mean, it'd just be so adorable. Adorable. And I think I want this one kind of up here at the top a little bit, like right in here, because I'm going to put a sentiment inside of it. And because we're running so late, I have a sentiment that I did yesterday playing around with some of these stamps. So I'm going to just use it, but I'll show you which stamp sets it came off of. Let me see. Put that down there. If I can even find it. Okay, so I took some more of this polka dot, but what I did was from the set that I'd gotten from the Secret Crush, these little thumbnail pieces, I actually stamped Insta Love, which is on here. This set is from My Road. It's called Picture Perfect Stamp Set. And what I did was I took, these word stamps are Insta and Love are separate. And I love Instagram pictures. So what I did was on my stamping block, and I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it because it's so clear, but I have a grid on my stamping block. So I put the word love down first on the grid, and then I layered the word Insta right here. And make sure it's straight when you do it because you don't want it crooked. And then I just heat embossed it and made this. So I just made a little ticket out of it. So that's what it made, Insta Love. I just layered them until they came out like that. And then I just did this cute little flag with it. And I think I'm going to stick that flag maybe coming out of one of these. I don't want to cover up my poppies, so maybe I'll do it. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it right there. So we got a good layer. Maybe I'll put it inside like that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I like it. I like it. So now that's going to get glued down like that. Insta Love. Now let's take, this is what our tag is looking like now. Okay, now I want to take and add just a little more something to this. So I've got this cute little Instagram camera here. This little Polaroid camera. I'm going to put it on my block and stamp it with my archival black ink as well. Make sure it's good and saturated. And I'm going to stamp it on my white. And just trim it out real quick. Now if you really wanted to do some fun stuff, you could also emboss this. This would be so cute because it would look like plastic that way. But for time's sake tonight, I'm not going to. But if you guys wanted to do a heat emboss over the top of this would be so cute embossed. Look at how cute that little camera is. So adorable. But again, I want to add a little bit of depth to it because it does seem a little flat. So I'm going to come back with my milled lavender. Let's see what that looks like. Because it's a very gray color. It's a very almost non-existent color. And I'm just going to kind of go over some of those areas that I would think would be shadows. And it's such a subtlety. I mean, I don't even know if the camera's going to pick it up, but it is going to add a little bit of depth. And then just come back over it with some of the color or some of the water to even it out. And I think I want this like right in here. Maybe like right in here. So we have our Instagrams coming out. And then one other thing I think I want to do is I'm going to stamp the word captured on here because that's just kind of fun. Again, get it straight on your block. And I'm going to stamp it onto the polka dotted as well, but I think I'm going to use that small. Is it wide enough? I'm a firm believer in use up those scraps, guys. This is a collection that we did like last month, so I'm a big believer in use what you got. And again, I'm going to come back with the black. And again, you want to make sure you get it good and straight. I don't know if it's going to be long enough. Oh, it's not going to be long enough. Here, I'll just do it on here. And I'm going to make a little flag out of it. And the cool thing about this being polka dots is that the polka dots are straight, so I have a cutting line. Cut my little fishtail off. Do the same thing over on this side. And well, we promised you guys that my fingers would be messy, and they are tonight. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to just bend this in just a little bit. Same thing over here. Add a little spot of glue on the tails. Where do I want it? I think I want it over her feet like that. Insta love captured. My fingers are nasty, honey. Look at that. So anyway, there you go, guys. Thank you for hanging with me during the technical difficulties. Actually, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to add a little ribbon to this topper, and then we'll be done. And also, I want to paint just a little bit. Where'd it go? I have some charms. I just want to show you how these paints react really quick to metal. Well, if I could pick up the bird, he doesn't want to cooperate. We may have to, there we go. I just want to show you how these things react to metal. So I have the white paint here. And I'm just going to dab it onto this bird. Just a little bit, you don't need a lot. And I'm just going to rub it in. And that's going to really pick up the texture on that metal. And you don't have to use those alcohol inks. If you have this, the paint sticks to metal perfectly. So we have that. Now I'm going to show you how it works with the wood. Again, super cool. This is a little wooden Prima camera. And I'm going to color both sides because I want to hang it on something. So I'm going to let those dry really quick. That pink disaster that I had going on over here, I'm going to pick up some of that pink and maybe put a little bit of that on here too. So it really, you know, these paints are great for wood, they're great for metal. Take some more of that pink, maybe put it on this one that says Imagine. I'm just using my fingers and rubbing it in. Pick up some of that white. Maybe tone down the gold on this little pin. Now I want to show you how they work with seam binding. And I have some seam binding up here on my desk. And I'm going to use, this is the spun sugar. So you can color your fabrics with them. You can color your metal, paper, plastic, anything. And then just to give a little bit of texture to that, I'm going to pick up some of this disastered hot pink over here. And I'm just going to work it in with it. And you know what? Until it's dry, it reacts just like any other distress product does. Just all you have to do is wet it. And that'll help blend it. Now let's get it dry. Does anybody have any questions? We're almost done. I'm just going to tie this up and then we'll be done. These are the wooden Prima pieces. Suzanne has them in the store. She has them in a couple of ways. One is the way they're packaged, and two is a variety pack where you get a little bit of every one of them from the collection. I don't know. Let's see. This is the first time I've ever used it on seam binding. That's why I wanted to try it before I let you guys go. This is creative play. It wasn't planned, so we'll see what happens. The Studio Calico pieces, Suzanne has them in the store. Little animals. I think, didn't you have some that were travel, or did they sell out? The States and stuff like that. Now, one thing, if you heat this metal up, please make sure you're careful, because you don't want to get burned. Okay, so the question was what? Will it dry soft? Well, look at, this is how it dried. I don't know if the light's gonna. So, did that answer your question? I really like it. I think it's cool. It's still a little bit wet. Oh, I don't have any of the stars, but yes, if you had the stars, they would be super cute on here. You know, if you had that stamp, Life is About Dancing in the Rain, you could totally make an umbrella and put it over her head and stamp that stamp on here. Does it feel crusty? It's stiff. It is stiff. But to me, I mean, it's paint, you know, it is paint, but it's stiff. It's almost like it's been starched. Does that make sense? Well, it feels stiff like it's been starched. That's does that make sense to you? Is that a good description? Does it flake? No, it's not flaking. No, the paint is not flaking off of it at all. Okay, good. And I'm just mixing it with a little piece of tulle, and I'm going to tie it into this hole at the top of the tag. But see, I kind of like things grunged up a bit, so I don't know. If I wouldn't do this on the stuff that I plan on using on a wedding, but for something like this, where the medium kind of is a little on the chalky side as it is, I'm okay with it. But like I said, I wouldn't necessarily do this if I was planning to do someone's wedding. I would dye it. And I'm just going to add that right there to the top. So I think Suzanne has a blog post. I don't know if it's on the Flamingo Scraps Facebook wall or if it's on the Flamingo Scraps blog. But all the supplies that we used tonight that are available in the store, she has those on a list. And that way you guys can go back and reference it. And then just to kind of, let's just put my little bird in here. I don't know if he's working for me. I'm going to leave him off. But anyway, thank you guys for hanging with me during the technical difficulty. I know it was hard to keep up, but hopefully the recording is good and we don't have any problems there. I think I need to move that around. There we go. So, does anybody have any questions? Here's our little tag. We used a lot of techniques tonight. The tag itself is, you know, it's got a lot of stuff going on it, but I wanted to do the techniques. That's what was important. It was playing with the product and getting you guys familiar with how it looks, maybe pulling in some of the other distress products and seeing how they all work together. But I have to tell you, I am very pleased. I know this has a chalky look to it, but honestly, let me get it up close where you guys can see it. It's very smooth, and I don't know any other way to say it. It's smooth. Even though it's chalky and flat, it's smooth. And I think that with mixed media mediums, that's exactly what you want, because you don't want the paint to compete with the stuff that you put over the top of it. Does that make sense? And that's bugging me that that thing is over her head. I may have to pull it down. I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to quit recording. I'll be around if you guys have any questions. Let me know.